Hey, welcome back to System and Soul, another sessions. And this is a fun one because McKenzie's on vacation. So while the cat is away, the mice will play. And we are here with my great friend, special guest, coworker, Chris Ames. Woo! Yo, Chris is the man. When we decided we were going into software with System and Soul, there was nobody that I wanted to partner with more, nobody that I trusted more, and, side perk, nobody that I like hanging out with more. So, Chris, welcome to the world. Getting you out of the closet. Chris is our CTO, but he gets undersold with that because he is a multifaceted, multi-talented, strategic thinker with a deep heart. So Chris.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'm just wondering why you stopped with the compliments so soon. There's more adjectives.
Yeah, well, I wanted to save some for, throughout the show, and we got to wrap up and all that. So perfect. I can't just do 30 minutes. But, we'll try and slide some more in. As we're getting started, huge shout out to Fist Bumps for making the show happen, making it possible, making it clean, and dealing with all of our antics along the way. So if you're thinking about putting on a show, getting content for the socials, they're a great partner, both the thinking and execution side of things. So today's episode of Sessions is a reflection. And so since we have Chris, we thought we'd get into like some of the inner workings of like, what is it like to work at a company that is trying to eat its own dog food? We know leadership is like a messy thing. And so it's really easy to get on stage and talk about it or in front of a leadership team and then leave and say, do all the right things. But we're trying to live it. And I wouldn't say we're building an airplane as we're flying. I think we built the airplane and we're flying, but we're always in the messy of figuring things out as well. So maybe I'll just start with that, Chris. Like, what's it like? Do you ever feel that tension of working in an organization that is trying hard to eat its own dog food?
Yeah, absolutely. It can feel sometimes experimental, but then other times not experimental. And so, but what I feel about the experimental part is that I don't know that it's unique to us just because we're in the business of coaching leaders and helping leadership teams, because the meta around business is always changing, right? Like our understanding of leadership is still adapting, like all of us who are in leadership, but then also the economic conditions are changing, new technology breakthroughs are happening. Each generation, is kind of entering or leaving the workforce, or they're at some point of progression within their place in the life cycle of their careers generationally. And so all of those changes bring changing expectations. And so it's not like just because we teach leadership, we're static and we have it all figured out, or we don't. We can never have it all figured out because the context, the meta around us keeps changing. When I feel the most like we've got it figured out is when we have, like this past week in our senior leadership team meeting, I think I literally said the words, "I love watching this model work," because we dipped in, we followed our rhythm, we cleared a bunch of important obstacles and opportunities, and then we left having the right conversations, and nothing about that felt experimental. But then if you remember, like a couple of weeks ago in our senior leadership team meeting, I had an opportunity on the board that was like, I just don't know if this quarterly goal stuff is working. Like, can we try like cutting a quarter in half and just setting 6-week goals? And I was like, I had this itch to experiment and try something new. And so I don't know that there's one right way or wrong way. I feel like it just depends, on where we are. So
yeah, that's one of the things I love about a framework and why we use the word framework, because like there's a piece of it that like, who cares if it's 30 days, 45 days? I mean, there is some strategy around 90 days. The thinking is you can do big things, but it's not so long that the energy for those things like dissipates. But especially for smaller companies, you don't have the ability to predict that as far out. And so those shorter cycles make a lot more sense. Like first financial plan I ever built for a company, and I went and showed it to somebody. He says, well, there's one thing I know about every financial plan I've ever seen. It's wrong. But then he said, but it doesn't mean it's not useful. Right. And so it's like, how do we do it well? And if there's something we want to try, we're deviating from something, right? It's not like we're just making things up or not doing it. We're strategically deviating from something. And
iterating.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between companies that are just like willy-nilly or negligent versus maybe going a little off script, which can be strategic. So
Yeah.
that's good. I'm glad you brought this. This is a little bit of a tangent, but you brought this up about the generational thing. I was with a team this week, and something that came up was they have for years and years and years had unlimited PTO. And what they're bumping into right now is the younger generation. There's two problems they're seeing. They have almost 2x the days off that other generations have. And the older generations work to get their work done to be able to take those days off. They like make it up. They're willing to, pick up the phone at night on the weekends, whereas this latest generation is not. They're totally willing to disconnect, and I have unlimited PTO, so I'm going to take it. And I don't really think about the ramifications on the rest of the team or my commitments to the company. That's a very interesting dynamic that's emerging.
It is. I mean, I'm 50 years old, and the mental model that I've had since childhood was you can go out and play once your homework's done.
Yes, right.
Like school first, play second, work first, play second. It's like working for the weekend. There's literally songs written about this. But when I look at my kids, they're like, charge my batteries so that I can work. It's different. It's not, and it's a point of view. I don't know that either one's wrong, as long as it's, in balance. But, charge your batteries first, and then the phone will work is kind of their mental model of what I'm experiencing with my kids anyway.
There's just a cool story regarding that is I was raised with like the creation story, and we were made on the 6th day. And so what did God do on the 7th day was rested, but we're not God. So what on our first day with God to then go work? So there is a both and to that, and working from rest. Like I love that, but there is that, we share that Gen X, blue collar, middle America, Midwest, like you can get your work done.
Yeah.
Right? So that was bred in pretty hard. So that'll be interesting just generationally. What do you see within working within this framework? It doesn't necessarily match your work style. Is that a fair statement?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My default wiring is not to just get on the rail and run and ride the rail, like do the system.
Yeah. So tell me about what that feels like to you, and maybe how you've had to compensate, or I mean, does it end up being freeing or constricting, or like what does that do within you?
It's actually freeing, because even though I might not self-create really consistent systems and follow them rhythmically, I value people. So I'm more subjective, relational. And so what the system does is it actually creates these oases for me where it's like, okay, I got work to do today, but I get to meet people tomorrow and be with my people tomorrow when we have our regular weekly sync, for example. And also, I work great when other people rely on me. I'm more of a supportive personality. It's like if I'm doing something to deliver to somebody, that creates internal sense of like urgency and even a desire to do it. And so the system really just puts a frame around the things that do motivate me and drive me as a person. And so, but I think the key thing is that somehow early on when I got into computer science and started at my career as like a software engineer, I discovered the value of systems. And so even though I wasn't naturally good at systems, I still valued what they could produce and the effects, the outcomes that come on the other side of like putting a system together and implementing it. So I think that helped. If you're somebody who is super creative and doesn't understand or appreciate the value of systems, I can imagine a framework could actually be pretty constricting. But when it comes to getting a bunch of people to work together in a direction, the only way is to do systems. And start light is what I would say, is like start light and then only layer in, little by little as you go to see what the group can sustain. So
there's a metaphor that my coach used to use. He said, when you have wild horses, you put the fences in the valleys so they can't see them. They don't really know that they're there. They feel like they're able to run free. And yes, every once in a while, they're going to come up against a boundary, but because it's down in the valley, they can't see the entire perimeter. So they don't really feel stuck. right?
Right.
And so it does create a little bit of a safety. Everybody's in the same place. And I just like that metaphor because I do not like to feel constrained.
I've noticed this about you.
You talked about systems. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, you said you don't like feeling constrained. And I think what I've observed about you is, as the visionary that you are, you almost see the constraints as a challenge. It's like as a problem to solve. It's like, that shouldn't be there. Let me prove it. And so that's delightful and sometimes frustrating to be on the other side of it.
Oh, talk about that. How is that frustrating?
So because you are like, it's your role to be ahead and to be thinking ahead, and you do that better than the rest of us, hands down. There can be sometimes an underappreciation of like what we've already committed to, because you've already seen enough of what we've committed to realize its inefficiencies. And also you're looking at like what's next and saying, this could be, should be, is probably going to be better. Let's go. Let's, pivot. And meanwhile, sometimes your team is on the other side going, aren't we working on the pivot? Didn't we already pivot? And, you're wanting to pivot again and adapt again. And so that's the healthy tension, or that's the tension, which can be healthy with the right people, the right perspectives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you should have seen that, experienced that before the framework. Good Lord. I'm so sorry. Apologize to people I led a decade ago. I mean, that's the renegade story in the book, though, is how little bad that is. You talked about systems, and one of my favorite things with you is like, I feel like we're on the same wavelength when it comes to what AI is and isn't, and passing tools and trying things. And I think in the marketplace, there's a promise of what AI is that it is not actually. And at the same time, it is more than most people are leveraging. Yeah. So it's like, it's not the promise of everything that they're saying it is, but it is a lot more than people are taking advantage of in businesses that we experience. What's your kind of current take, and what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, man, there's so many ways this conversation could go, honestly. But what it rolls back up in my brain to is like, if there's something I would want all business leaders to know and understand that they might not have thought about in this way, is that this isn't the first digital disruption that we've seen of this magnitude. We've seen the internet revolution. We've seen the digital revolution with the internet. We've seen mobile phone, the advent of mobile phones, et cetera, et cetera. And if there's a lesson we can learn from all those things, it's that we overvalue how it's going to change and improve our lives in the short term. And so we can be kind of restless and be like, I thought it was going to change everything right away. But then we undervalue how the new technology or the disruption changes things in the long term. And so for the people who jump on the bandwagon too early, they're not going to get as much value as they think. For the people that wait too long, their competition already has a competitive marketing advantage, right? And so where is the strike point, and what should we be doing in the present is really a hard question to answer. And it's going to be unique to each business leader, industry. And so it can be really tough to navigate. And so, but if you can keep that in mind, it's like, what I would say to everybody is you're going to have to do something at some point. And the best thing you can do is have one person on your team who is responsible to figure that out, like what we should be doing right now. Because if everybody's just kind of experimenting and we're just kind of sharing notes along the way, it's one of those things where if everybody's watching the baby, no one's watching the baby, and you're not going to make a smart strategic decision for your business with regard. So that's my broad analysis. Like, where would I start? It's like put someone in charge of like making sure that you are able to adapt to the changing landscape, because it is as big as they say. It will be as disruptive as they say, but when it'll be as disruptive for each business is going to be different. And there's not like a one size fits all solution for that. So that's my overall thing. As far as technology is concerned, which is where you and I have been doing a lot of this legwork. We started pretty early, honestly, in trying to like unlock value with AI, and I think that is paying off in really big ways. But also as you know, like it's brought some frustrations. There are some things that we thought, oh, surely in 6 months at this pace, we're going to be able to unlock more value. And we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
And so, so yeah, it's a challenge.
I feel like the thing that it's doing right now is helping people maybe work smarter than they could have and create more capacity than they could have. And maybe that's through, there's a lot of these automations that have an AI layer to them, but they're really more automation than they are AI, and like process flows, workflows, all those things. I think it's it's creating capacity. I think that's the universal. It should be making us smarter as individual contributors to the business, smarter and growing our capacity for what we can produce. At an organizational layer, there's some promises that I don't think it's delivered on yet, or it has for very, very few. And it takes a lot of resources to pull that off at this point. But we're not to a plug and play. We're not to AI replacing people. I think it's coming quickly. I love the convergence of that and some of the robotics. Some of that's going to be really cool. I'm not looking forward to, I read a paper recently that said we're within 10 years of an AI chip in our brain to directly interact with AI. And that's the first time that I feel like an old man that's like, why would you send an email when you have a fax machine? Because I'm like, I do not want to live in that world. There's no part of that I think, like, who cares how productive we are as a society if we stop being a society? So that's the first thing I've seen that's like, scary is not the right word. It's just, actually it's really, really cool. It'd be fun to play with, but I just don't want to live in that world.
Yeah. It's like, I want to live in that world when it takes somebody who, is quadriplegic, and it drastically improves their life. My nephew's blind, and a pair of like Meta glasses where it could just read out what he sees. If he could like grab a can off of his shelf and pull it up to his face, and put it down, and not have to go get the special pair of glasses that just does that, and another, tool that does that. If it could just wear glasses and help me navigate the world. He went on a walk pushing his child in a stroller, and he had his cane, which is a signal, right? It's like, you got to hold your cane, not because he needed to like tap, tap, tap. He knows he was in a place where he knew, like the back of his hand. But still there was an accident where a car brushed the side of the kid's stroller as it went by, because they weren't picking up the signals. He was doing everything right, but the person just decided to turn anyway, and so, but for him to have like warning, like he just wants to go on a walk with his kid, he should be able to. So that's when it makes sense. But where it doesn't make sense is when we cease to be human, like when we have completely replaced, human thought, creativity, and the thing that makes us uniquely us. We're so augmented, and where that line is, I'm going to leave that to philosophers and to figure that out, and religious people, but not, I have speculations, but that's way beyond this conversation.
Getting out of the sci-fi for a minute, what's one like leadership principle that you believe now that you wouldn't have a couple of years ago?
Okay, so it's that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So like several years ago, I would have said, like, even about myself, like, my cake is baked, right? I can't unbake my cake. Like my way, my flow, my rhythms, my practices, all I can do at best is like scrape off the frosting and like refrost, but the cake is baked. But something that I've seen is that I have changed for the better. And when I look at leaders who kind of feel like they've gotten in a rut and not able to really make meaningful change, especially at an organizational level, they feel like, I've led this organization, I've helped get us where we are, but they hit a ceiling. And I think they just feel like it's because like I'm the limiting factor. It's because of me. And I'm never going to change. Therefore, the business is never going to grow. And I would have, 5 years ago, 10 years ago said, the problem with that company is the person running it, and he ain't never going to change, or she ain't never going to change. So that's that. but I have seen too many changes internally. I've seen too many breakthroughs with people I've talked to. I've caught up with people that, I lost track of and then re-engaged with, and they were a brand new version of themselves. And so to me, the leadership principle is like, maybe what got us here won't get us there. Maybe that, but you can actually be liberated from that feeling like you will never change, because you actually can. With the right people and the right system and the right support, you can all be a better version of yourselves.
That's such a great message. I think we definitely run into people that we have put into a box of they are never going to change. Whereas the people that do change, you usually see a pattern of their willingness and engagement in changing. I'm curious if you look back at some of the people that went through your brain as you were thinking about that, was there an instigating event that took them out of stuck into change? Because that feels like the thing that doesn't happen very much. Is like, if you're stuck, you're stuck. If you're changing, you're changing. But to go from stuck to changing, growing, it usually takes, unfortunately, it usually takes a painful circumstance.
Yeah. So there was a guy I fired once, and it was because he just wasn't a good fit. In that moment, he was not a good fit for where the team needed, what they needed, for what he needed, And I remember I got a text message from him like 2 years later, and he said, "Thank you." And he had gone on to a different career. It was related, but it was just a totally different path. And also he said, I had to let somebody go this week for the first time. He was in a leadership position.
Ooh.
And I have newfound appreciation for what I put you through, which really wasn't bad. We had a good relationship back then, and and still do. Like, I just texted with him this past week because we play video games together. but yeah, no, it was just I think it freed him up to be to have like that shift. And you're right, it was extremely painful on our end, on my end. Obviously, I can only imagine how painful it was for him. Because that's a deeply, it's a shameful thing. It can feel very shameful. And it really was just a fit more than he wasn't capable. He was good at things, just not the role he was in.
Yeah.
The other person that came through my mind was me. And there have been several painful events. But I think the most clarifying was I have a leadership coach that I would got paired up with, and she was my leadership coach for 8 years straight. And there were just several points along the way where she just did not sugarcoat anything. And I knew that if I told her what I would tell her, like a situation, I would say, and here's what I said or did. And every now and then she would just go, ooh, and I'm like, I did not expect that. I was expecting, attaboy.
Good job.
Good job. And she would go, ooh. And I was like, oh, Fran, what do you mean by that? And she would just, put it all out there. Did you consider? What about? And I'm like, no, didn't think about that at all. So there were a bunch of baby oofs, along the way that really helped steer me and be a better version. When I think about those coaching things and you being a coach, I know you've had a coach for many, many years. What were some of the big, is there something where along the way you felt like, let me start that over. Sorry. Yeah. I know you also, Benj, have had a coach for many, many years. What are some of the big moments, there where you felt like, I've disappointed him? Or you had that moment where you're like, you thought it was going to go one way and it went the other way.
Yeah. Well, what comes to mind for me, and there's a beautiful metaphor for this. If you're taking sheep up a mountain as a shepherd, sheep are not very good at going straight up a mountain. So you kind of walk them around and up and around and up and around and up. And there were, year after year after year, I would feel like I'm hitting my wall against the same issue. And I felt like I was disappointing him because I hadn't grown past it. I hadn't learned. I hadn't figured it out. I was definitely frustrated at myself. And then somewhere in there, I think he taught it to me. People use different languages for this, but circular paths of righteousness. So as we are going and growing, it feels like we're in the same place again, but we're not. We went around the mountain one time and we're back, and we're not the same person, and the circumstances aren't the same, but we have a deja vu moment because I'm looking around when I've been here before, right? But I haven't. I'm different, and I've gone up the mountain a little bit. And so that metaphor to me is so helpful because, think about your marriage. Your marriage, if we dove into it, it would be way too vulnerable for this podcast. And there's probably one or two issues that show up over and over and over. And you're like, why can't we get past this? But if you start to shift that mindset into, no, every time we get here, we're getting a little better. And it's not that we're here again plus, right? So I think that mindset has really freed me up to not have the guilt and shame that I haven't conquered this thing. And I'm reminded, like, there's this guy Paul that wrote most of the New Testament of the Bible, right? And it always talks about the thorn that he had in his side that God would never take from him. And I'm reminded that, here's Paul that we put on a pedestal because he wrote the New Testament. And I feel like whatever that thing is, I'm here again, feels like the thorn in my side. And maybe it's not getting pulled out, but maybe it's actually there for a reason to grow me again and grow me again and grow me again. And so maybe we learn to appreciate that piece of the journey. I also think those things, those issues are the things that keep us humble. I'm a leadership coach. So I walk into a session room and it's really easy for me to give all the right answers of what you should do, regardless of if I ever did them as a leader or if I do them or not as a leader. So I think if I knew I was perfect, my arrogance would go through the roof. So those crutches that we carry, I think, can serve us if we can shift our mindset around the right way.
Yeah, there's child raising is fraught with peril, obviously, for most of us, definitely for me. But I remember many years ago, as our kids were getting, through the tween years into teens, where they could actually rebut any argument I would make. And they, quite handily, they could disarm me intellectually, and it was always unexpected because they're growing rapidly. So I'm not able to really keep pace. I'm on cognitive decline while they're on cognitive incline. And,
not true, but keep going.
But I think my wife and I realized at some point, we're going to keep making mistakes and they're going to keep calling us on our crap. And so what step of improvement can we do? How could we be a little bit more up that mountain? It's like, we could at least apologize afterwards to them directly, because that's something that not a lot of parents from our parents' generation did, right? Like, they didn't apologize to children. It's like, I gave you life, shut up. It was more of the mentality. And so that was just like, okay, we can at least take a baby step. And then maybe over time, I can apologize easier, quicker. And then before you know it, hopefully, as Granny would say, good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Hopefully, they learn, at least to apologize and take some ownership when they say the wrong thing or, make someone's life unnecessarily difficult, we've done again and again with our kids.
Yeah. My takeaway from this conversation, which you and I could talk forever, is that we are all on a journey. Most of us, hanging out today, listening, talking, are on a leadership journey. And none of those journeys should go alone. We need, peers like us. We need the coach, like we've talked about. We believe that a framework can really help in that leadership journey. So just the gap and gain conversation, because we have grown, since the last time that we looked in the mirror. And we do have ambition for where we want to go and grow in the future. And so we're all on a journey. And most of the time on this podcast, I wrap and I'm like, hey, check out System and Soul's website, or we have a webinar. I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm going to invite you to go to my website, benjmiller.com. And here's why. One, it's kind of fun. But two, from there, you can get to System and Soul. if you are interested in a framework or a coach, you can get to the 261, which is a daily leadership tip reminder that I use for myself. Like, it's a reminder for myself that I just happen to let other people in on my reminders. And so you can sign up for that. And you can also click over and connect with me on LinkedIn, which I would love to do. I'd love to know who you are and what you're trying to do with your journey, just so I can, know you and support you, say a prayer for you along the way. Thanks to Fist Bumps, and we'll see you next